A lot of people are jumping the gun already and thinking about the appeal. How does that work if it goes to that?
Yeah, I would expect that MGA is going to.
What is OMG Girlz trade dress that brought this litigation forward?
Sure.
Can you explain to the audience what that is?
Absolutely. So,
do you get assistance from a specialist when you're picking the jury? Like, do you have someone that comes in and helps you figure out who to put on the jury?
And she had made certain statements that we didn't think were particularly credible. You've said this before, and she denied it. I played it and said, you were on this YouTube Live with Nick at Night, and you said this, and she didn't deny that she was on it. And I played it, and sure enough, it was exactly what I had told her that she had said.
I am so proud of this team. They are unbelievable. They had the courage to stand up to the big corporate bully and say, do the right thing, don't steal from creative. And I'm so proud of them for hanging in there and fighting this fight.
We're proud to have you.
Yes.
Yes, we're so proud of you.
That was a lot about it. You know, we came in late in the last one after the mistrial and just tried to figure out how to streamline it after the way it went the first time, and really just kind of talked it through, thought about the girls, thought about what the evidence was, and tried to tighten it up.
Yes.
All right, and you guys don't go unnoticed in the back. Rob, shout out to you for playing my video, and shout out to Shantae because they are the dream team.
Smartest lawyers around. I'm
Yes.
just lucky to be surrounded by a great team.
Shout out to you guys. Hey, what's up? It's your girl Nick, and you're tuned in to Nick at Night, and I am back at it again with an exclusive, and this time I'm going to be talking to the attorneys that won Tiny and the OMG Girls a whopping $71.5 million. Now, they're going to be sitting down, or they sat down with me, and we went over the ins and outs of this trial, what happened in the last trial, how they won this one, certain little things, insights that they wanted, and little nuggets they wanted to drop off. And we're going to get on into it. But before we get into the video, I want to clear up a few things. Now, a lot of people are confused about 17 million versus 71 million and why they're seeing posts that say they won 17 million and then they're seeing posts that say they won 71 million. Well, both posts are true, but the one with $71 million is the updated total. Now, originally they won $17,872,000, and that was their what is called real or engorgement damages. Now, because the jurors found that they acted with fraud and malice, they were able to receive punitive damages. Now, the attorney who was representing Tiny, T.I., and the OMG Girls, he basically was able to then argue for the punitive damages, and he told them that they can award 2 times and up to 4 times the amount that they gave in real damages. What they came up to was $53 million, and that brung the total up to $71.5 million. So when you see posts where it says they won 17 million, that's true. And then when you see posts that say that they won 71 million, that's also true. And that's the most updated information. There's 2 figures that go into making that 71 million, and that's what we got. Another thing I want to clear up before we get into this video is a lot of people were asking, will the money be split amongst the other OMG girls? Now, this was a trademark infringement and likeness case, and they are the owners of the trademark. So originally, Tiny, she created the group, and she was the original owner of the trademark, okay? Now, I want to say when she renewed the trademark, Zonique, Brianna, and Beja are now accompanied with Tiny as owners of the trademark. So if those of you who are wondering, will they get a cut? They absolutely will. Now, I don't know how that's going to be divvied up because obviously Tiny and T.I. bankrolled this whole lawsuit. It wasn't cheap. It was very expensive. So, you know, that's family stuff. But they will get a cut. They are owners of the trademark, and that was something that a lot of people had questions about. And that is something that came out with me watching the trial. So they cross-examined Tiny and they asked her about the ownership of the trademark, and it revealed in court that she's the original owner. She's like the main CEO, owner, creator, whatever. And then they are a party to ownership of the trademarks, and they do have a percentage of ownership. They don't have as much as Tiny, but they are owners to it as well. And she talked about it in great detail in the last litigation, the second trial, and she talked about how she added them to make sure that they were taken care of in the event that this lawsuit went through. Period, poo, so they're getting a cut, period. Oh, and another thing, before we get started, I just want y'all to know the quality is not the greatest. I worked with what I had. I wasn't at home in front of my, my studio equipment, so it wasn't the best quality, but we got good answers, good questions, good information. So we running with it, seizing the day, using what we got, and let's go. Hey, what's up? It's your girl Nique, and you're tuned in to Nique at Night. And tonight I am joined by some powerhouse attorneys. I'm going to talk to all of the attorneys that basically won this verdict. I'm going to start with John, and we're going to go through the rest of the team to see how they were awarded this whopping $70 million lawsuit. So, John, let's start with you. Just give us some background about like who you are, how you became into like litigation and things like that.
So I'm an engineer gone bad, as my former colleagues say. I was a mechanical engineer, decided to go to law school, went at night, and always got into intellectual property. So I do a lot of patent, copyright, and trade secret, trade dress cases. And so, yeah, when we got into this one, it was kind of right up the alley.
Okay. So how long have you been doing this type of work?
Closing in on about 25 years. So.
Oh, okay. So this has been a ride. There was a trial prior to this one, and then we landed here. How did it go from the second trial to the third? A lot of people want to know, like, how, like, was there an appeal? Like, how did we end up at the third trial?
So there was a first trial that ended in a mistrial, and then I came into the next trial not too long before it went to trial, and that one there was an issue of law that ended up being wrong, and Rob Green, who you probably talked to, was the one who spotted that, and it ended up the Supreme Court changed the law right after the trial, and so we didn't have an appeal. We had the verdict, and it was based on a bad law, and then that got, the judge overturned it, and so we ended up in trial number 3.
Okay, cool. So I remember you saying something to the effect of the previous law was only, that went against you guys, was only in California and New York, but this case kind of overturned that? Correct.
Yeah, the Supreme Court oversees all the circuits all around the country. So since there was a split in the circuits, they looked at this and they said no. In a case called Jack Daniels, they said no, this isn't good law as a defense to trademark or trade dress infringement.
Okay. So during the trial, there was a lot of talk about trademark, trade dress, what is their look? How did you guys narrow down what the trade dress is in your case against what the trade dress infringed in their dolls?
So that was always the same through all the cases, right? So the trade dress stayed the same. And then what really narrowed between the second and the third case was how many dolls we were going to accuse. And that kind of came late. We talked about it, and it was getting close to trial when we ultimately agreed, let's focus on these.
Oh, okay. So what was the focus? I mean, what narrowed down the focus to those particular dolls?
You know, one of the things was we saw previously that it looked like some of the dolls were copies of Beyonce, some of them were copies of other celebrities, and so we wanted to focus on the ones that were most blatantly patterned after the OMG girls, and that's where we ended up with 7.
Okay. So I noticed the jury was a lot different this go around. as well, as opposed to the last trial. What did you think going into this trial with this new younger jury as opposed to, it was a lot older last time?
I think it helped that we had a younger jury. I think it helped that one of the jurors ultimately who was struck by MGA had said when we were picking the jury that she knew of the OMG Girls, that she had been maybe not a fan, but she knew of them, knew of their music, and it kind of cut into a little bit of the argument that, oh, nobody knows them, right? And so then the jury we had, they heard that, and they were a very attentive jury. They really were paying attention. There was a lot of note taking. There was a lot of really like kind of leaning in to hear what the witnesses said. So I think that helped. We
Right.
always believe that if we get a jury that listens, we're probably going to win the case because we're going to put on a better case.
I had to bring it closer, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. We're good.
Right. Okay. So speaking of jury selection and I'm going to pivot from the first trial to this trial. So in the first trial, it ended in a mistrial because there was a video played that mentioned cultural appropriation.
Right.
And that was something that was basically forbidden to be talked about. However, you guys, I feel like, lucked up this time because there was a juror who wasn't selected, but she did a very long, lengthy rant about how corporations rip off people. What did you think about that when she said that?
I think she didn't talk about cultural appropriation.
She didn't talk about corporal. Yeah.
But she talked about big corporations and how big corporations think they can get away with things and they try and steal from people wherever they can, and you can't trust them. And I think that helped. I mean, that set a little marker in people's mind, because one of the things that MGA didn't do well in that was they said, oh, what do you feel about big corporations painting themselves as a big corporation? So, yeah, I think that set a little marker in the back of people's minds.
Okay. All right, so one of the questions that one of the night owls sent in, they wanted to know, do you get assistance from a specialist when you're picking the jury? Do you have someone that comes in and helps you, figure out, who to put on the jury?
Yeah, so it depends on the size of the case. So for a smaller case, we probably won't. But for a case that's this big and this much importance, yeah, you always use that help. So we had a guy named Robert Hirschhorn, who's fantastic. That's all he does is pick juries and try to help you find where you might have somebody biased against you, where you can get the most fair jury. And I think he helped a lot in this one.
Okay, that's cool. And then I think we touched on it a little bit, but I guess I just want to ask again, what strategy did you use in this trial that was different than the previous trial?
Couple of things. Number one, this trial, we didn't have the issue we had last time with that First Amendment defense when the law changed. And I think that was a big part of the verdict in the second trial, right? The last one. The First Amendment defense was setting a much higher burden for us. And it gave kind of an easy out a bit for them. And then when the Supreme Court said the law is wrong, obviously that took that hurdle out of the way.
All right, so those of you guys who are sitting there and you're like, First Amendment defense, what is that? Y'all know I got you. So it says via Google, the First Amendment can be used as a defense against trademark infringement claims, but there is tension between the First Amendment and trademark protection. So some of the defenses that can be used are fair use and what is called a Rogers test. Now, the Rogers test is what was in that Supreme Court case that he was talking about. And so let me talk about the Rogers test real briefly. So it says, this test is used to protect First Amendment rights when a trademark is used for an expressive function, not to identify the source of a work. The test has two parts: whether the use is artistically relevant and whether it's misleading about the work's source or content. So the Supreme Court recently ruled that the Rogers test doesn't apply when a trademark is used as a source identifier for the infringer's own goods. This means that even if the use is a parody, it may still be subject to liability. Yeah, New York and California kind of allowed this parody type of thing, or you had a higher burden to prove it, as he stated. Well, when the Jack Daniels case went to the Supreme Court and there was a squishy dog toy that parodied the Jack Daniels liquor bottle, they said that, that still infringed on their rights, and it changed the law that was there when they previously had just lost their case. So now they have a lower burden. Parody is up for grabs in litigation, and that's kind of where we are now, just kind of to explain a little bit more.
And then when the Supreme Court said the law is wrong, obviously that took that hurdle out of the way. And then other than that, it was really just how do we refocus this in a way that it's clearer for the jury? And that's part of how, kind of late before trial, we ended up coming up down to $7 instead of the 32 that were issued before. And really just trying to get the case focused to where the jury could look at just the really key things instead of having, it spread across a number of issues. That was the second thing. And then I think also calling their witnesses early in our case, where we could attack their credibility early on, was something that really helped as well.
Here is an example of Attorney John Kevill attacking the credibility and them claiming that the dolls don't look like who we see they look like.
You were asked a question, and I'll put it on the screen. Were any of these tots meant to be the likeness of any individual? And you said no. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you stand by that?
Yes.
Do you stake your credibility on that?
Yes.
Let's take a look at the tots in Exhibit 1905, which is in evidence. We talked about the Goo Goo Queen. Do you remember?
Yes.
You said this tot is not a Lady Gaga doll from the telephone music video. Do you stand by that? This is not a representation of Lady Gaga?
I do.
Let's look down at the page of Exhibit 1905. Below that, there's an Elton John tot, right?
No, that's the character Piano King.
Right down to the Elton John glasses, correct?
No.
You're saying this is not a representation of Elton John?
I am.
Alan, can you put up a picture of Audrey Hepburn from the famous movie Breakfast at Tiffany's? So it's your testimony that this tot is not meant to be a representation of Audrey Hepburn?
Correct.
Okay, right down to the tiara, the same glasses, the same dress, the same choker, all that, but you say it's not a representation of Audrey Hepburn?
They aren't the same. I stand by what I said.
Are you saying that it's just a coincidence that this tot has one white glove and name is Shimon?
It's Shimon Queen.
I'm sorry, maybe my question wasn't clear. Are you saying it's just a complete coincidence that this doll has one white glove and is named Shimon?
This is a completely unique character. This is a girl. Yes, I believe it's a coincidence.
That's a coincidence. All these connections to Michael Jackson?
Yes.
How you doing today, first of all?
I'm good.
Congratulations.
Thank you much.
You did a wonderful job, like I told you earlier. When I first walked in the courtroom, I said to myself, wow, the OMG dolls, they're in trouble, because I assumed you were the other side. Until someone whispered in my ear and said, no, that's T.I.'s attorneys. And I said, oh my God. So I kind of felt in my spirit early on Friday when you guys closed. I said, this feels pretty good. I had a good feeling about it. And it turned out the way I thought it would. I think you did a remarkable job, and the rest of your team as well.
Yeah, the team is the whole thing. I mean, the attorneys I work with are so much smarter than me. It makes my job easier. So it's a pleasure to work with Rob Green and Shante Westmoreland.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. I just want to know, at any point, did you ever feel like it was an actual turning point in the case? Did something appear to you where it was like a gotcha moment in your mind?
No, there wasn't really any one gotcha moment, but I think a lot of their witnesses, when we called them early in our case, lost a lot of credibility.
Okay.
And I think, that's kind of what juries do, right? They look at it and they go, okay, who's credible, who's not credible?
Right.
And when they started losing credibility, even in our case,
Right.
I think that really starts setting the tone.
I felt the same way, sitting back in the gallery. I felt like you guys were more personable as people. And I felt sometimes some of their witnesses were a little disrespectful.
Oh, a lot
A little kind of egotistical.
Yeah.
And you could tell that they were being a little more less friendly with you all than with their attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And
just as a layman, I just think that comes across as people. That comes across to people.
For sure.
And so I think you guys did a great job at not letting them kind of like bait you in with the back and forth and getting kind of out of character, so they could kind of say, well, they both were out of line.
Right.
It was kind of all left on them to not be, on par for course of how they should have conducted themselves.
Yeah, you always got to be who you are, right? The jury's looking at everybody, and they're looking at the lawyers, and they're going, okay, do we trust the lawyers? Do we not? Because we know they're getting paid. But they look at the witnesses, and they say, you're only going to get so many credibility shots. You're either going to gain credibility and we trust you, or you're going to drop.
Right.
And I think theirs dropped because they were one way when their lawyers were asking them questions,
Right.
and they were a total different way when we were asking them questions, as opposed to the OMG girls and Tiny, who were the same all
Right.
through.
I seen that. And one thing I also noticed too is it seemed like they were purposeful about it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something that, like you said, it didn't come across natural, like they didn't understand that question or they didn't agree. It almost seemed like that was their predisposition before you even asked the question. It was more tighter, more, I'm giving you one answer. It's like more short, more, where their attorneys, it was more kind of like it wasn't adversary. It was more or less, I'll answer anything you wanted me to answer the way you want me to answer.
Right. Right. It was very, on their part, very rehearsed when they were being asked questions by their lawyers. And then when we were asking questions, it was very defensive, hard to get an answer out of them.
Yeah, and the man that owned the company, the young man, I think that his outburst, it was real severe. It was almost a big hurdle to get over. If I was just looking as a person to person, not even in the courtroom, it was some of the things he said were very harsh, man. To some kids.
Yeah, I think that didn't play well. You're a billionaire and you're insulting these young ladies who really had a successful career, are having a successful career, worked their way through their teenage years, and were just there to defend what they built. And for having him, insulting them over and over, I don't think that played well at all.
Yeah, it didn't.
All right, so here are a couple examples of the owner of MGA basically going off on random tangents throughout his testimony. Now, these are in no particular order, but there was a couple of times where the judge had to kind of get him together real quick and get him to answer the question, and even instructed the jury that they can take his credibility into consideration when they deliberate. Like, it was a whole lot. Mr. Larian, you told an inspiring story about how you as a teenager pulled yourself up. Congratulations on that. But these young ladies here work very hard in their teenage years to build a brand, and yet you have called them nowhere, and you and your attorneys have frequently put down their achievements in this case, correct?
They are nowhere. I'm sorry. I apologize. They are nowhere.
And you think that's okay to insult people?
It's not an insult. It's a fact.
And T.I., who was here, is a self-made success in music and entertainment. And you called him a hustler in a derogatory term, and you've called him an extortionist.
They are extortionists. Their name is the Hustle Family.
You insult people frequently, don't you?
I don't.
You've insulted everyone on this side of this case, have you not?
Absolutely not.
You don't think calling people those names is not insulting? All right, so this part right here, they basically talk about how there was another group called XOMG, and the group was formed in 2021, well after the OMG Girls. And so they were trying to say like, oh, well, there's other people who are using your name and you're not suing them. So it picks up where the lawyer says this. And we have been in lawsuit that you filed against the OMG Girls and Tamika Tiny Harris for 4 years, correct?
Yes.
And you are saying we have to, despite this, go out and sue other people at the same time?
You shouldn't sue anybody for something you don't own.
Judge said the answer will be stricken.
I'm just trying to answer the question.
All right, so the judge jumps in and says, ladies and gentlemen, you'll recall in initial instruction, I told you that there were a number of factors that you could consider in assessing the credibility of any witness. One of those factors is the manner in which the witness testifies. It was a whole lot of y'all just had to be there. But I think this really went against him because he was cutting up, honey, cutting up.
And the last thing I want to say is I believe this case is bigger than the judgment. I believe that there's been a new wave of creators and YouTube channels and and people who's taking their own plight in their own hands, right? And I think that this is going to set precedent for people who feel like they may have been wronged, or just moving forward. I think it's going to empower them to understand that, you know, you are a brand and you are someone, and you do have a place in this thing, whether it's media, fashion, acting, you know, even if you're outside of the so-called bubble.
Yep.
And so I think this is going to set a big precedent, and it's going to resonate with a lot of people, the work that you guys done.
I hope so.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. We like standing up for creatives, and that's a really big thing. These girls had done so much. Tiny had done so much with them. T.I. helped, and it's all, you know, unfair for somebody to just piggyback off that and take it without giving credit.
Exactly.
All right, I'm gonna hop in now.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Okay, so going back to the case now. In the early beginnings, there was a text that Tiny received, and can you explain how this got to litigation? Because a lot of people think that you guys seen the dolls and you went and filed a lawsuit. So can you explain to the people how you guys ended up in court?
Yeah, it didn't go that way at all. It went that Tiny got a text that said, "Oh, look, OMG girls at Target." And it was a picture of the OMG dolls and looked a lot like one of the tour outfits that they had seen. And Tiny was like, wait, we didn't authorize this. So then she talked to a couple of people, and ultimately they said, well, we ought to get a lawyer and write a letter. And they did, and they had a lawyer write a letter to MGA. And in most cases, when a company like MGA gets a letter, they'll write a letter back, and they'll say, well, we disagree, or we're going to look into it, or something like that. And MGA didn't do that. Like 2 weeks after they got the letter, they fired off the lawsuit. And that's really not typical. And so that's how they ended up in the lawsuit. They sent a letter, ended up getting sued, and then counterclaimed in the lawsuit to say, okay, well, if you're going to sue us, then we're going to counterclaim that you used our trade dress.
And what always was a mind blown moment for me is the fact that when they would go into court and litigate this, they would try to insult Tiny and T.I. and say, oh, this is a money grab, this is a shakedown. But it's like, you guys started the lawsuit. So, how can you even say that when, but...
And that kind of, again, goes to the credibility.
Right.
They lost some credibility by saying, oh, there's a money grab or a shakedown, when they were the ones who filed the lawsuit, number one. And number two, Larry, and if you remember, they were saying, oh, well, you sued him personally. And they're like, no, you sued T.I. and Tiny personally. And then their lawyer just responded. So it really all came from their side.
Okay. And so before I go to Shantae, I want to know if there's a person who thinks that their likeness is infringed upon, what is the first steps that they should do to bring forth a litigation? Call you?
They should call Shantae and Rob Green. Those are the people they got to call. Like I said, they're the brains of the operation. So, but yeah, the first thing you should do is talk to a lawyer and see what your rights are. And, I never tell people run off and file a lawsuit, because the lawsuits are long and expensive and they take up a lot of your time. But there are times when you have to do it. And credit to Tiny and T.I. and the girls that they were willing to stand in there and fight for, what they built and their creativity.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to ask you some more questions, but we'll pass it to Shantae.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mika.
All right. Hey guys, so now we have Shantae. Shantae has been here from the beginning, and she has been litigating this trial. So I want to know from you, what did you feel when you were litigating and it was the three of you guys, and John made a comment and he's like, well, they have all their attorneys, but us three, we hold our own.
It's, again, it goes to the power behind the team. The team really makes a difference. Everybody rowing the boat the same direction, being on the same page. The leader is often, everything kind of follows from the leader. And so knowing that John has the confidence in me and Rob and the rest of the team really just helps us to go in there and be the best attorneys we can be. It's a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of hard work, obviously. But when you have clients that all they have to do is get up and tell the truth, it makes it worth it and easier.
Okay. And can you explain, like, what is a trade dress to, like, the people who don't know? Like, if I'm an artist, I have this look, I always wear blue hair, or, like, how can you explain, like, trade dress to the people?
Sure. So trade dress, it's similar to a trademark. It's a brand signifier. So it's something that you're using regularly to associate or to teach the consumers, to teach the public who is selling or what is selling the goods. So some of the more classic trade dress examples are going to be the insides of restaurants, are ones that some people don't really think about. There's a famous Supreme Court case about a small Mexican restaurant called Taco Cabana. And so you're thinking about what the inside of the restaurant looks like. Some other kind of more classic examples, the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle, that's trade dress. So even if you don't see the Coca-Cola name, if you see that bottle, you're thinking, oh,
right.
I make the association with that's a soda or Coca-Cola specifically. So
Okay. And then more specifically, what is OMG Girls trade dress that brought this litigation forward? Like, when you guys, like, said, well, this particular things are the trade dress.
Sure.
Can you explain to the audience what that is?
Absolutely. So you can hear it from the consumer witnesses that testified. The difficult part is that trade dress is such a visual thing. It's often difficult to put it into really specific words. And so here, the words that we use to articulate kind of the look, it's going to be the name OMG Girls, the colored hair, usually in pink, purple, and blue, and then kind of the fun, vibrant, edgy clothing that they would constantly wear, and that the fans began to associate that. They would see them and say, they must be trying to sell me something, whether it's a performance or music.
Okay, so speaking of trademark, trade dress, and what the OMG Girls, Tiny T.I. are claiming, this is a piece of testimony where she talks specifically what her claim is.
Are you claiming MGA talked a lot about in opening about this, a piece like a shoe or a specific skirt? Are you claiming any one particular piece of clothing as your trade dress?
No. I wouldn't be here to claim any particular clothing because we don't own or haven't created or started any one particular thing. I'm claiming that the girls with their name, it's a variety of things. Their name, their colored hair, the pink, purple, and blue, and then the look, the style, and their lifestyle of them being singers and artists.
Was this trade dress common or outside of something you've seen before the OMG Girls?
Yes, I've seen different pieces on different artists, of course, but never as a trio have I seen someone with pink, purple, and blue hair as a group at the same time wearing the clothing that they wore. So yes, maybe Nicki Minaj wore blue hair or pink hair at a time, but we're not claiming pink hair. We're claiming pink, purple, and blue as a trio. That no one was doing that before these girls. Yeah, and so from doing the discovery and seeing some of the comments, what was the fans' reaction to realizing that the dolls were not owned by Tiny, T.I., and the OMG Girls?
Yeah, I think their fans and just the overall consumers who purchased the dolls and were, thinking they were supporting or sponsoring, sponsoring the girls. I think that they're kind of the other kind of victims in all of this. We heard testimony from consumers who were saying, this is the tool that I use to teach my child about a big part of my own childhood. I heard the songs, and watched the girls with my older daughter. And, so when my youngest daughter asked for these, I was like, oh, this is a perfect time for me to teach you a little bit about our culture. And so hearing real people, I agree with, Tamika and Miss Harris and Zonique and what everyone was saying was just, it really helped reinforce that, like, this is something. This isn't, a lawsuit that was slapped together. This is something that, is important to the girls, to the Harrises, as well as the consumers.
Right. All right, so in this case, we saw 2 doll designers testify, but was there any more that was responsible for these dolls that we didn't hear from?
Yeah, so in all litigation, there's a period called discovery that happens where it's the parties are exchanging sort of documents and relevant people. And one of the things that we asked for in the limited amount of time that we had after my last firm got the case, we had to really push to get documents and people. We asked for relevant documents, relevant people, anyone that we needed to talk to try to get to the bottom of who was responsible for certain doll designs and things like that. And there were certain people whose names kind of came up, but we just never actually heard from and were never able to get in touch with. So one of those you heard come out, Jeremy Thompson was one that you heard come out.
Yes.
We heard that from other witnesses that he was responsible for some of the doll designs, for especially the little small dolls, and we just never heard from him in this case. So.
Okay, and did he design any of the dolls that were at issue specifically out of the 7 to 9, or?
So we not those. We heard that he had designed some of the tots that those bigger dolls were based on, and so that was, they a big part of their story was that the bigger dolls were based on the smaller tots, and so but we didn't get mood boards, for example, for the smaller tots, so we don't know what images or pictures appeared for those dolls. So so we don't know.
Right. So in order to get from the tot to the bigger one, it's like, where are the documents that lead us here?
Sure.
And you guys didn't get that.
Correct.
Sounds like.
That's
okay.
right. That's right.
All right. And before I ask the next question, one of the things that came up in this trial that basically went against MGA's credibility was this scandal that they had with some of their dolls. Now, before the OMG dolls were created, there was these LOL Surprise tots, and they were the little sister to the OMG dolls, and the OMG dolls were supposed to be the big sisters. Basically, what would happen is if a person would dip the doll in ice water, it would reveal very scandalous lingerie, caution tape, bondage looking things on these little dolls intended for, very toddler to very, very young adolescent ages. And they have these super adult things that are referenced in these children's dolls. So they were asked quite a few questions about this, and how there was a lot of parents who were upset that these messages were being sent to their children unbeknownst to them. The designer who created these specific dolls that had this specific surprise, and she was kind of the head designer over many designers, she was confronted on the stand about this because the company got a lot of criticism behind her doing this crazy mess. Now, in addition to Blanche Consorti being confronted about these dolls, when it was time to argue the punitive damages, the attorney for Tiny and T.I. said that the jury needed to send a message to MGA on behalf of the people who were kind of victims of this, what they called Lingerie Gate with the toys. Okay, and then when they put the doll designer Blanche Consorti up, what was the reaction? Because I kind of missed that day when they started to talk about this lingerie gate that they had. Like, what was kind of like the reaction to that?
Sure. There wasn't a lot of.
I mean, well, the jury didn't really react, but like.
Sure. Oh yeah. I mean, in the courtroom generally, I was gonna go with how Miss Consorti reacted. It was just kind of answering the exact question asked. Kind of. There wasn't a lot of like explanation. I don't feel like we ever heard sort of how anyone found out about it. Sort of what occurred to kind of fix it. It just kind of seemed like they didn't want to talk about it, and so I think that question hanging in the air was more harmful than much else. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So pass it to Rob.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Rob here now. Y'all wasn't in the courtroom, but let me tell y'all. Oh no. Now I did a video and I confronted one of the doll designers. If y'all don't know, Rob played the video in court and confronted the designer with that.
You can put Lady Gaga and find a picture of Lady Gaga as you want, as close to Gaga Queen as you want to, but you're not going to find Lady Gaga wearing the same doll fashion the OMG doll is wearing. You're not going to find that with any.
That's her name though.
What?
The doll name is Gaga.
Gaga Queen is a tot. Is the tot is what I'm talking about. Gaga Queen is a tot.
Whose idea was that? Because I didn't even know what that was going on.
I think it was probably my idea, but it certainly was a team discussion. But she said what she said that we played, and we thought it was relevant. So it wasn't like we're just playing things to play things. Like, it was a relevant point that went to the witness's credibility, and she had made certain statements that we didn't think were particularly credible. And in fact, I wasn't going to play it. I asked her, and I said, "You've said this before," and she denied it. And so that's why that's called impeachment. I played it and said, "Here you go. You know, you were on this YouTube live with Nick at Night, and you said this," and she didn't deny that she was on it. And I played it, and sure enough, it was exactly what I had told her that she had said. And that was the only, if she had just agreed, I wasn't going to play it. That's how impeachment works. If they agree, then so be it. We'll move on. I had questions I wanted to ask about her statement, but it was when she denied it that I then said, all right, I need to play the video.
Okay, I just wanted him to say that because
And you weren't in the courtroom that
I was in the courtroom that day. I didn't know that they were going to do that.
Yeah.
That was actually, now that I think about it, that was actually one of the days that I went a little bit later. I was there that day. I just missed that part because child traffic be hectic in the morning. However, to a greater point, and the main point with the impeachment that he didn't relay on this interview was she specifically said that you'll never find a tot with the same exact outfit.
You can put Lady Gaga and find a picture of Lady Gaga as you want, close to Gaga Queen as you want to, but you're not going to find Lady Gaga wearing the same fashion the OMG doll is wearing. You're not going to find that with any
has her name though. And basically what he did was show that the same outfit was in fact when she performed in her music video Telephone that featured Beyonce. And she had the leather jacket with the undies and the cans in the hair. And in their doll, it's like clearly the same look.
You're familiar with the LOL top called Gaga Queen?
Not really. I didn't design that doll.
You are familiar with it, though, aren't you?
Yes.
She is the little sister of Fame Queen and OMG doll?
No, I'm not at all, because I thought you initially were asking me about the tot doll. So no, you shouldn't ask me any questions about that because I didn't design that doll. I didn't do any development or design of the doll.
That's not my question, ma'am. My question is, you are familiar with Gaga Queen Tot, correct?
No.
No familiarity with it.
I know what she looks like. That's it.
It's your opinion that if someone put a picture of Lady Gaga, they could put up any picture of Lady Gaga they want. It wouldn't have similar fashion to Gaga Queen Tot? Do you remember last year when you joined a YouTube live with the creator named Nick at Night?
Objection, 403.
Overruled. So we could put the Gaga Queen Tot next to any photo of Lady Gaga, and they won't have similar fashion? That's your opinion?
I was talking about Gaga Queen, the tot, that wears a leather jacket, underwear, black boots, and her hair is in rollers. I have never seen an image of Lady Gaga wearing that.
Alan, can we put up Lady Gaga from the famous Telephone music video? You're familiar with this music video.
No, I'm not.
You've never seen the Telephone video of Lady Gaga and Beyonce?
No.
Okay, well, now you have seen it. Would you agree that they have similar fashions?
No, I would not, because you're looking at an illustration. And by illustration, I know what the doll is wearing, and it's not silver studs. The doll is wearing a black jacket that is encrusted in black glitter. That is a way of rendering what glitter will look like. But in person, it's more like this with black glitter on a jacket. She is wearing a black and white striped tank top. She's wearing shorts with a zipper in the middle with what looks like black glitter on her shorts. She's wearing silver fishnets over her legs, and she's wearing a tall black boot up to her knees to match her jacket that's in black glitter. I also see the doll has her hair in rollers. That is silver rollers. Lady Gaga is wearing a soda can out of rollers. This is not a soda can on Google Queen. That's actually her name, Google Queen. On that doll, she is not wearing a soda can in her hair. She is wearing rollers. This scope has been used multiple times on bedtime dolls and on a doll I also created where it is actually a roller set because it is about going to bed. So it was repurposed for this look. Lady Gaga is not wearing a glittery jacket. She is wearing a silver studded jacket that is customized and very high fashion. She is wearing a black bra with silver, 2-strand silver stitch stripe on it. She is wearing black underwear. The Google Queen doll is wearing black shorts. That's why it's a zipper and not underwear. And Lady Gaga is not wearing silver fishnets. She is wearing black fishnets. I don't see that. This is the same thing. But okay, so you've been covering this trial. You came late. This is your first time doing the in court, because I know John said that you were the one who discovered the Supreme Court case. So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I didn't have any witnesses in the prior trials. I was more behind the scenes. I actually went all the way back to Chante telling me about it in the first trial, even before that, when we were at our prior firm, telling about, just the case going on. I was always interested. But I handled a lot of the kind of morning issues, we call them, where you deal with exhibits or you talk about just different things, that aren't before the jury, but you're just trying to, they're on the record. They're just trying to kind of move the case along. Mm-hmm. Part of that is jury instructions, including the instruction in question that was this First Amendment defense. And so I was very homed in on, okay, this is a very specific thing, and they're building their case around it in the second trial, and it's a very important defense because it really changes what we're supposed to prove. And it was a hard, both sides fought that, argued it, and they ultimately got the instruction over many objections from us of why we didn't think it was appropriate. And so, yeah, it just happened that, we knew this, we saw that this was an issue throughout the case and we raised it. But when the Supreme Court came and totally turned it on its head at the exact issue that we had been saying, shouldn't be in this case, we brought it, and that's why we brought it and said, look, this was an improper instruction. We didn't know which way the Supreme Court was going to go, obviously. But, right. Nor could anyone ever predict that. But it had been we had objected to it throughout the case, and it was very important because of how much it, not to get into all the details, but basically it was essentially kind of a gateway.
Right.
And it made it, hard for us to be able to prove our case. And so when it came down, we briefed it, and, the judge looked at it, and, we think he got it right and agreed that, yeah, this was a big deal, and it probably is the reason that, affected the second trial.
Oh, okay. So. And for those out there, how many hours goes into, preparing for a case of this magnitude?
For the whole case or for that issue?
That issue sounded like it was a lot. So just
that
overall.
Issue, we were in there many, some stuff's off the record and you talk, but you ultimately put your stuff on the record. That's how it often works. I couldn't tell you,
just endless.
Hours, the total to get through. Like I said, I was kind of I had my part in the second trial. Maybe I earned my way to the third trial, but we knew it was they were making a big deal out of it. They were building a case around it, so it wasn't like nothing. But the total thing, hundreds upon hundreds of man hours between the three of us, and then I want to be clear, there's the three of us, but there are people helping us that aren't, we're at the table every day, but there's people that help us with kind of those morning issues, like I said. Yeah. So I want to make sure that they're credited as well for,
the hard work.
They're up till 4 a.m. too. I'm getting ready for a witness at 3 a.m. and I know that I have people, shout out to Umar, I know I have people that I can hand off something to and say, hey, can you help me get this? Here's what we need to say. But can you help me? Because I've got to get ready. Tomorrow I've got, near the end of the trial, I had nearly 3 witnesses back to back. Mm-hmm. So knowing that you have that support behind you is really huge. But yeah, I'd have to look back. The hours is, imagine working 16 hours straight for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
is whatever that multiplication is.
All right. So in a case like this, when you're trying to decide how much to get, how did we get to the 71 million? How were the damages computed?
So, that's really not on us. There's a standard that's used, and we have our expert, they have theirs, and, I think our expert took his job very seriously of, look, this is the standard I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to look at the revenues. I'm supposed to deduct whatever I think they can prove. And we don't, he gave his number. He is the one, he's not saying win or lose. He doesn't speak to trade dress infringement. He's not advocating. He's just saying, look, this is, if I follow the standard and the numbers that MGA gave me, here's what I arrive at. So in that terms, it's whatever he told me. He says these are the numbers, and I say, okay, let's, I'll ask you the questions, but this is your testimony. This is your work, not mine.
Right.
In terms of the other, the ultimate number.
The ultimate number, like how we got to the 71. So it was 17, and then it was 53.
17. So we had the 17.8, which is what he calculated as the profits from the 7 dolls that we asked about. He looked and he said, this is what I think they can put forward. Here's the profits. And that ended up being 17.8 million for the 6. He had a second number. The jury obviously said, let's keep it to the 7. We get that. And then the punitives, that was John, giving us some guidepost of, I think they ended up, if you did the math, they exactly 3 times it. So that's not something that we, that's something I think we very clearly left to them. Said, here's what we would suggest, but we completely trusted the jury on this one. We think they got the issues, and we, whatever they had returned on the punitives, we would have said, that's right.
Okay. I'm going to ask the last couple from John.
I'm back.
Yeah. So you guys narrowed it down from the original ask to $7 to $9, but when they were reading the verdict, there was an additional $7 that they said that also infringed on the OMG Girlz likeness. So can you explain that, like how it was the 7 that you guys said, and then they said, wait, we think these 7 too?
Yep. So, it was a really unusual case in this regard, because normally if somebody comes in and says, okay, we're asking for $30 and $100 million, and we've decided to focus on 7 to 9 and cut it down to 18, 17 to 25, most of the times the other side is going to say, oh, that's great, we just took a whole bunch of money off the table. In this case, MGA said, nah, we want all 25 extra ones in there for the jury to decide. And the jury looked at those and said, nope, this one doesn't infringe, but this one does, and this one does. And they found that there were 8 more that infringed.
Eight, sorry. Yeah. 8.
Yep, no, that's all good. So, yeah, I think it kind of, in some ways, backfired on them, that they wouldn't let us narrow the case down. And they asked the jury to figure out more, and the jury said, well, yeah, more of your dolls infringed. So, but we were always consistent from the jump. We always said, we're only going to ask you about these dolls, and we're only going to seek you to provide money and damages award for these dolls, and that's it. And so we were consistent.
Okay. And so when you guys are going into a trial like this, do you have any like rituals that you do that is like a consistent that you do, like, okay, this is like our thing that we're going to do before we get in there to kind of put positive vibes on?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we work as a team and we brainstorm together and we talk things through together, and it's never separate pieces all doing their own thing, right? We always have a team strategy. We always work through it. So that's a big part of it. We pray before we go into court. I do a lot. And then just try and settle myself down and keep it focused on what I need to do. It's a lot of late nights. It's a lot of getting ready for this may come up, this may come up, this may come up. How do I address every possible option? And you're going to miss some, always, there's always surprises, but it's really just being more prepared than anybody else. That's always we try to do.
Speaking of being prepared, you guys have to go through every single thing that they submit to try to like figure out like a way to like impeach them and attack their credibility, because obviously they come in and they're attacking yours like crazy. There was a picture of Rihanna where there was an original picture where she had like copper blondish hair, but they put it in their document and they changed her hair to blue. Whose job is it to like find and look and say like, wait a minute, and get the magazine and, confront them? Like, how does that happen?
So it's all of us. I mean, all of us are always looking for where are weaknesses in their case, where are things that we don't believe that we can attack their credibility, where are they stretching. And we've got a guy named Dave Slater who is the most phenomenal graphics guy I've worked with. So you saw the slides that I used in closing.
Oh, they were good.
Yeah, so he works with me. We basically worked all night to get those done and ready for closing. But Dave Slater was looking through them, and he said, this Rihanna picture seems weird. And so he started searching for it, and then eventually he found, no, this comes from a picture from Rolling Stone magazine, and it's not blue. And so we looked, we tried to find, was there anyone that was blue, and there wasn't. And then we bought a copy of the Rolling Stone magazine, and then we put it in and evidence and caught them with, whether they did it just for this case or they did something else with it, I don't know. But it was definitely an altered picture of Rihanna, and they had no explanation for it. And that goes to their credibility.
After they kept trying to say, oh, you guys manipulated, and I don't know if my court, they had their own court documents of their own lawsuits, and they would give their lawsuits like to the guy to read, and then he's like, I don't know if you manipulated this and all of these things, and it's like, you guys are the ones manipulating things.
For sure. It struck me as odd that he kept saying, well, I don't know if you manipulated this, when it was their documents that they filed in court. It doesn't make any sense, which made you think maybe he's saying that because he manipulated stuff, and that was part of how we found Rihanna.
A lot of people are jumping the gun already and thinking about the appeal. Like, oh, well, the guy normally always appeals. So, like, how does that work if it goes to that?
Yeah, I would expect that MGA is going to appeal. That would not be surprising given their history. But we feel like this case went in really well, that the evidence is really good on our side, and we feel really confident about being able to hold this up on appeal.
Okay. Thank you so much for speaking with me. I think that you guys did a phenomenal job. And shout out to y'all for even, what I'm saying, it wasn't automatically gonna happen, but I feel happy to be a part a little bit. My little 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was great to see you up there on the screen in court.
Yeah.
And but thank you for everything.
Okay, and closing, if a person or company wants you guys to litigate for them, like, how do they contact you guys, or do you not want to get that out?
No, it's all good. We're at Shepherd Mullen is the name of the law firm, and you can look up any of us, Rob Green, Shantae Westmoreland, or myself.
All right, and that is that on that. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Nick.
Was there any more questions?
Do you think these other people that might be bigger and more recognizable will start?
I'm curious.
It is interesting.
On what you guys
It is interesting. Yeah. Because, exactly. There was so much.
I was looking at the Michael Jackson one.
I'm wondering if they did get a letter on that one because they were so weird about it.
All right, y'all. So I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I think that it was something that y'all, like, you just had to be there. Like, when they basically gave their announcement of what the verdict was, and they said that a verdict was in. We came in, and it was like crazy different from the last time. The last time that we came to court and they had lost the second trial, it was like right away. This time the judge was kind of like going over it. We were sitting there for like 5 minutes till he kind of like got all of his ducks in a row on how he's going to deliver the verdict. The anticipation was high. I'm like, I'm not getting no money out of this, but my heart was beating for them, like, what's about to happen? So it was very, very exciting. I'm so happy for all of them. The attorneys, like I said, they did a phenomenal job. I'm happy for Tiny, who is the sweetest person. I'm happy for the OMG girls, Zonique, Beja, Brianna. They are also so adorable, so dope, and they definitely deserve it. They definitely got beat up as far as how they came at them. Verbally beat up, that's what I want to say. And they got vindicated this time. The last time, I want to say it was the second trial, the attorney that they had basically told Brianna Womack, and she was like, you know, it's sad that, you know, Zonique, you get to go back to your rich, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said like, oh, it's sad, Zonique, that you get to go to your rich parents and you get to live your life. But unfortunately for Brianna, you know, she gets to go like she like used a Cinderella reference, and she was like, oh, her carriage is about to turn into a pumpkin and she's just about to go back with nothing, and you guys getting her hopes up, and you know, she's nothing, da da da. And I was just like, oh my God, like, did you really have to do that? And so now, them being vindicated, I was like, okay, I heard that. I felt like I got vindicated too, because they was playing on my top last time, and they was coming in my face, and they was profiling me and doing all of that stuff. And I was like, I can't wait till y'all lose. Okay, I'm gonna be fair in doing my little reporting and all that. I'm gonna tell y'all the facts, but I still felt like, that's what y'all get. Shouldn't be out here acting like that with people. And you know, it just gave a certain level of entitlement that was unnecessary. Their ego definitely needed to be humbled. And unfortunately for Tiny and T.I. and OMG Girlz, because they have such an inflated ego, I don't think they're going to let it go. But a win is a win.
Okay. We want to... Okay, we got Nick at night.
Hey, shout out to them. Congrats. They did that. Okay, I wish y'all would have seen it. They did it. They've been holding it down. Shout out to y'all.
Thank you, Nick. Nick been down, coming down from first trial to second to third, and we can't thank her enough. You know, we want to shout. What's up, Geisha? We did this for the city. We did this for the culture. You know, and it was a fight. You know what I'm saying? It was a hell of a fight. This fight been started in 2020, and it's now 24, and we couldn't be more happy, man. I wanted to come on here. I honestly wanted to come on here to say we wanted to thank the jurors for, like, just seeing us through this, man, and just believing in what we said. And they heard our story, and they knew we wasn't lying. Okay?
It's right there.
All right. They knew we wasn't lying, you know what I'm saying? And that's what's up. Yeah, what's up, King?
You don't need a purse, do it?
Yeah, give me my purse. They knew we wasn't lying, and man, it's amazing that they seen us through, God willing, everybody, and our girl Nick at night. Yeah, and Megan, she was there, Rolling Stones. So yeah, thank y'all, man. And hey, we finna turn up a little bit one time. If y'all ain't checked out that motion video, go check out the Girlz, man. They on that grown and sexy, man. It's new, improved, OMG shit. The new single Motion is out right now. If y'all ain't got it, stream it, download it, man. Just support your girls, man. We coming back with more music. And it's been to be bigger than ever, man. And we just appreciate y'all, everybody that's been down with us. And I love you too, Geisha.
And make sure to check out my coverage on this trial too. Check out all my interviews that I've been doing with Tiny for all 3 trials, and my video breakdown of this, and my videos coming after this as well. So make sure to check it out, Nick at Night.
Yeah, she's definitely so good at what she does, man.
Nick at Night.
She been having us, you know, stand down with us every day, and just, you know, interviewing us and getting the scoop behind and seeing what everybody feel, how everybody's doing. And, you know, just getting all the information in there. So we can't thank her and everybody else that took the time to say they were interested in what we had going on.
All right, so we are here, about to have some dinner. Y'all know I don't drink, so I got my lemonade. Okay, wow, they celebrate. I'm so happy for all of them. They did their big one. The lawyers did their big one. Tiny over there on her phone. All right, we gotta get the cha. These the big winners right here. Y'all, I got my lemonade, y'all.
Cheers to the W.
Yeah.
W's all around the table.
That's it.
Okay, there we go. All right.
All right, Rob, let's drink.
Cheers, man.
OMG.
Yeah. All right, y'all. They leaving, they peacing out.